Welcome everyone, and thank you very much for joining this session, especially taking into account that it's after lunch, so it's a challenge one, but we will make it as lively as possible to let you enjoy and, of course, to stay awake. Let me introduce myself. I'm Eugenio Gervasini, an agronomist. I work at the European Alien Species Information Network, the JRC, in northern Italy, and I'm moderator of this session, and I will help throughout this event by Celia Lopez Canizares, who is my colleague. She's a biologist and is working with me at EASI. Thank you very much, Celia, for the good work. Our session is named Engaging with Nature to Protect Our Environment. We did the frame or the cluster of citizen empowerment. So by default, participants are muted on their joining to the session. You will be let be in later on when we will have the discussion. For that, you might raise question with the chat or raise your hand when time will be reached. The session will comprise 4 presentations by different speakers. We have selected for their competence and experience in the domain of citizen science and invasive alien species. Something just to introduce our session to justify why we decided to organize it. This is because what we observe is that there is a rapid change in the environment around us, and this due mainly because of the human interventions such as urbanization, land use change, and pollution, of course. And this produces negative effects on biodiversity, and which is put under severe pressure and is threatened also by the introduction and spread of organisms non-native to our region, which has also an impact on the environment capacity to deliver the so-called ecosystem services. So all the kind of benefit which help us in our daily life, like food production, air and water purification, and so on. So the protection of biodiversity concerns everyone. All people, all citizens are involved in that. That's why citizens play a fundamental role in this field and can contribute through citizen science, as we will discuss in this session. So this said, without further ado, we can introduce the first speaker. But in the meantime, if you would be so kind to write in the chat why are you joining today, what is your interest, what is your role if you are a public administrator, researcher, citizen scientist, just to let us know better what is the profile of people participating today. So let me introduce the first panelist, who is Tim Woods. Is a communication and community officer at the European Citizen Science Association, EXA, a very important organization dealing with harmonizing activities and streamlining citizen science initiatives across Europe. Tim has been involved, is involved in Horizon 2020 project called Course for Cloud, which is aimed at boosting citizen science technologies, addressing quantity and quality of data, and maintaining citizen observatories. Is also involved in the panel feed, which is another interesting project on participatory approaches to a new ethical and legal framework for information and communication technology. Thank you very much, Tim, for your time and your participation. So I leave you now the floor to your presentation.
Thank you, Eugenio. Good afternoon, everyone. Greetings from Berlin. So I'm going to talk this afternoon a little bit about what citizen science is, just so we've all got a basic understanding of that. Citizen science and invasive and alien species, some of the projects active in that particular field, and also a little bit about what motivates people to get involved in citizen science projects more widely, and also with relation to invasive and alien species. So the first slide that's up, that's great. What is citizen science? It's a fairly kind of simple question in one sense, but there are probably 100 different answers if you asked 100 different people working on this. One of X's roles is to try and introduce people to the subject. So what we've come up with is the description that you'll see below you there, and that is, it's a very broad field. There's a number of different ways that citizen science takes place, but the main principles are that it involves the public, non-professionals, volunteers, participating in scientific activities. Something that's important is that they don't just kind of give their data when answering a survey. They're actively involved, and they can be involved at any stage of the process, right from forming the research questions and identifying what the research priority should be, to analysis of the data and summarizing the findings, sharing the results from the project. So citizen science is more than just citizens helping with data collection. One of the key principles from Exo's perspective is that it leads to an outcome. So it's kind of moving on from the hobbyist. So to give an example from the natural sciences, someone that watches the birds in their garden, even if they keep kind of little notes for themselves, that would be a hobby. If they're sharing that data and getting involved and helping it to lead to some kind of wider outcome, that would count as citizen science. It can take place in diverse fields. Ecology is perhaps the best known field for citizen science in terms of observing species and monitoring the environment, but it happens in astronomy. There's projects to watch to identify different stars, different galaxies. There's a growing body of citizen science projects within the field of health and medicine, quite a few in relation to the COVID crisis going on at the moment. And you also get things that perhaps not everyone would have been aware of, things like historical citizen science, you know, people kind of archiving records, digitizing them and making the records more publicly available, and doing that under their own steam in their own free time as volunteers to help the cause. And another thing, it happens at different scales. So projects can be very local. It could be a very small group within a community trying to kind of monitor the wildlife in their own park. And you also get global level projects. So I'm sure some of you, well, most of you have heard of things like the Zooniverse project, where you can get involved in projects that happen all around the globe with thousands and thousands of other volunteers. So that's the short answer. If you could just go to the next slide, please. The longer answer, and this is where kind of a lot of the science of citizen science takes place and the research into what it is, it can be found in two documents that EXA has helped to work on. The 10 Principles of Citizen Science was one of the first things that EXA produced as an association back in 2015, 2016. And that kind of gives 10 bullet points about what is citizen science. So it was kind of our marker in the ground when the organization began. This is what we think it is. More recently, several members of the EXA community have been working on a document called The Characteristics of Citizen Science. This was led by Muki Hackley, who's our vice chair. And that offers a bit more nuance, and it kind of asks what is and what isn't citizen science, to try and help all kinds of different people, whether it's funders or people looking to get involved in the sector, really be clear about what qualifies as citizen science and what doesn't. So if you're interested in exploring this discussion a little more, or this question, then I'd point you towards those two documents. And I can put the links in the chat a bit later if you like. So just to give you a few examples of citizen science projects that work with invasive species. And before I start, I should point out there's several of further projects that are active at the moment listed on the EASIN website. So they do have a long list there. But I just thought I'd share a few so we all know what we're kind of talking about today. So this was a project that took place in Snowdonia in North Wales. And I come from the UK myself. And if you've worked in any kind of gardening or conservation project, then the words Japanese knotweed kind of send a shiver down your spine. It's a highly invasive species in the UK. It's very hard to get rid of. I think it's quite prolific. I'm not an expert on the subject, but I've come across conservation projects where the task is to get rid of Japanese knotweed. It kind of grows along canal banks all over the place. So the project, it was set up through the Citizen Observatory web project, which is finished now. And they weren't trying to clear Japanese knotweed from Snowdonia, they were trying to track it. Citizens went out with smartphones and tablets and recorded where they saw it. So everywhere, it was a kind of a fairly simple citizen observatory approach, where it was seen, it was recorded and kind of shipped up to the main database so that the national park authorities could keep a track of where it was spreading to, and to try and target their containment efforts. I think it's such a vociferous problem there that they've given up trying to eradicate it from the national park. It's more a case of containment, but the citizens' involvement there was quite useful. And there's a couple of links there if you're interested in reading a bit more about that project. Next, please. So this is a second example of a citizen science project, and this comes from the Plantnet project, which is one of the Cost for Cloud consortium members. And this would be an example. The first one was perhaps a local project, and this is a more international one. And they've got a whole channel of the Plantnet website is focused on identifying and recording invasive species. And again, it's based on citizens uploading observations that they see. And there's tools online on the Plantnet website which help you to identify what it is. And they've got nearly 1,000 different invasive species logged there. It's providing the data and the records to kind of really track where invasive species are across Europe. And the link there will take you to a document that explains this project a little more. But that would be an example of a desk-based, perhaps, citizen science project where people are identifying and helping to identify invasive species from their home a lot of the time. Next, please. And this third project is actually a new project that's just starting up. Some of you will recognize the creature on the right-hand side of the screen there. Again, it's a name that's familiar to conservationists, certainly in the UK and also in Sweden, and probably many other countries as well. It's a signal crayfish, which is a larger species than the native European crayfish and tends to outcompete them. So it's quite a problem in a lot of waterways across certainly the UK and also other countries. And what the Swedish EPA, Environmental Protection Agency, are trying to do is have a system where not only do citizens observe where they see it and send it up for upload it to the database, but they can also find out more about the species. So it's an education plus citizen science project where they're trying to kind of educate people about the species. And it's also a monitoring, because once the notification when a species is spotted, it's verified by an expert, it goes to the eradication teams, and then they can kind of tick the box that one's been cleared. So it's keeping a live database of where the invasive species are and where they're being controlled. So it's just starting up now. And again, this is something that the Cost for Cloud project is going to be working on. Next slide, please. Okay, so just a little bit about EXA, for those of you that aren't familiar with this. The European Citizen Science Association, we're a membership association. We've got members from all across Europe and indeed outside Europe. We're open to both individuals and organizations as members. We've got quite a mix of people have joined EXA, so mostly from Europe, but we have universities, we have small citizen science projects, we have private sector companies as well. And our main tasks are to encourage the growth of the citizen science in Europe and beyond. So we work with partner associations in North America, in Australia, and also the newer networks in Latin America, Asia, and in Africa. And our main activity is not just kind of coordinating European citizen science activities through our conferences and meetings, but we also work on specific projects. I've put the logos of there in the slide as well. So DINOS is a project that's looking at odor sensing in Europe. Panofit, as Eugenio mentioned, is about data protection and data security. The We Observe project, which is just wrapping up soon, is about citizen observatories. LandSense was looking at remote sensing and land mapping for land use and land cover. Doing It Together Science was one of the very earliest EXA projects, and that was about getting people involved in practical science. And then there's the EU Citizen Science Project, which is establishing a central platform for citizen science in Europe, where you'll be able to find all the resources that you should need. There'll be discussion forums and a way to kind of, really coordinate and mainstream the citizen science movement within Europe. Next slide, please. So one of the things that EXA aims to do is to empower citizens through citizen science. And this is another area, along with what is citizen science, where there's quite a lot of research that goes on. How does this actually work in practice? But some of the main kind of agreed conclusions around this are that citizen science can help people to understand science and scientific process. It kind of, the phrase we use in English is it breaks down the ivory towers. Science isn't something that's done behind the walls of a university or a research institute. It makes it more transparent. If people are involved, they can understand what goes on. And that's very important in the world we live in today. When you look at some of the kind of major challenges we face, with health, with climate change, people that understand science and understand how the scientific data is produced, it should help them to appreciate the importance. It doesn't seem like a kind of a closed subject that they can't get involved with. Another reason that citizen science can empower citizens is going back to the first point. Citizen science should take place at every stage of the process. So it gives people a chance to say, this is important to me, this is an important local issue for my community, there should be research on this. It helps you to kind of steer the agenda a little bit. And there's also opportunity to get involved, which can be simply for fun. People find it interesting. It can be for their own personal development or personal growth. It might be for someone that wanted to work in science, but their career took them elsewhere. But it gives you that kind of foothold to get involved in the sector. So there's lots of different reasons why people get involved in citizen science and how it can help them to feel part of the process a little bit more. And in particular, two of the areas that EXA is working on at the moment is to reach the marginalized and vulnerable groups within society and within Europe. So people that are perhaps not always represented in these discussions and these debates and are underrepresented in our own organization. We're trying to reach out and find out what the barriers are to their involvement and try and support certain groups to be more involved in citizen science. We actually have a working group that works on this, and we're going to be doing a lot more of that in the coming years. Next slide, please. And then the next point is motivating citizen science. Now, this is something that every project needs to think about, because without your citizen scientists, you don't have a citizen science project. So there's quite a lot of research that goes on into motivation. What motivates different people to get involved, what motivates them to stay involved, what motivates them to encourage others. There's all kinds of motivations going on. It's not just the citizens that need to be involved, of course. You need scientists to work with the citizen scientists. And you also need policymakers. The aim of an awful lot of citizen science projects is to have a stake in policy and to influence policy. So you need to engage the policymakers as well to develop networks and communicate with the citizen science and the project. So there's all kinds of different ways to motivate people, and one useful example is from Civil, an organisation in Belgium. They produced a recent paper about how to set up and run citizen science projects, and they had quite a nice summary here of why do people get involved. But as I said at the start, there's many diverse fields in citizen science, and there's many diverse motivations. So there's still an ongoing research into that field in particular. Next slide, please. And in terms of motivating citizen science about invasive and alien species, now I did a bit of research in this before the session, and I couldn't find any specific results, but I did find that there's a cost action going on about this very subject, and they have a working group setting that's looking up at why people might involve themselves in citizen science projects looking at invasive and alien species. So this cost action is running now, so there should be findings coming out from that project and from that working group specifically in the scene to work out exactly what motivates citizen science in this particular field. Next slide, please. So looking to the future a little bit, what's going to happen next for citizen science and invasive species? As Eugenio mentioned at the start, one of the projects that I'm working on is Cost for Cloud, which is looking to make data more interoperable and more accessible, with, in particular, with a focus on the EU Open Science Cloud, and it's developing services to make it easier for citizen science projects to share their data with the European Open Science Cloud. So it's not specifically focused on invasive and alien species, but it is a lot of the services we're working on are focused on nature observations. You know, we're working with organizations who've been doing this for a lot of time, and there will be services that will be relevant to citizen science projects working on invasive and alien species in particular. Next slide, please. Yeah. And so the second part of what next for citizen science is really questions, because you know, EXA as an organization, we're always looking to our members to help guide us about you know, where we go next and what issues are going to be important. So it would be useful for us to know in particular, are there any species out there that aren't yet being observed or monitored through citizen science projects? Is there a gap that citizen science can help fill here? In terms of the process, it would be good to know or get some thoughts from the participants about where citizen science can particularly play a role here. The obvious field seems to be, from the examples I gave, the observation side. You know, people are out and about and they spot the invasive species, but are there further roles that citizen scientists can play in this process? And is there anyone that has recommendations for what EXA could do within this field? Is there any role that in particular we should be playing, or is there something more we can do to support citizen science within invasive species in Europe? So thank you for listening, and yeah, I look forward to chatting further.
Thank you very much, Tim. Very interesting and comprehensive presentation. So our audience now knows more in a better way what citizen science is about. And while inviting still people in the audience to tell us a little bit about them, I can already see that we have quite a variety of attendees. We have farmers, researchers, people from the public administration ministry, and people involved in cross-border cooperation projects and in environment and sustainability development projects. So quite a good variety of participants. But please continue. Let us know in the chat about you. We will have a poll with some question after the fourth presentation, to which we invite to participate via Zoom before the plenary discussion. Now let me introduce the next speaker, who is Lourdes Lazaro Marin. And she's her background is in journalism, but also has a master in environment science and society. Got in the UK, and has an extensive experience, more than 20 years, in communication in several institutions which are related to the management of environmental policy, and is now responsible for the corporate development department at the International Union for Conservation of Nature, so-called IUCN, Center for Mediterranean Cooperation, coordinating the strategy line on nature-based solutions and the communication units. So, Lourdes, thank you very much for participating, and the floor is yours.
Hello, thank you very much, Eugene, and greetings from the IUCN Center for Mediterranean Cooperation based in Malaga. And in my presentation, I'm going to talk about the citizen science program of the Life Invasive project and how we plan to engage general public and specific target groups in raising awareness activities and data collection. And why are we here today talking about invasive species in the European Week of Regions and Cities? Why is it so important to manage non-native species in urban environments? Well, there is some evidence that cities are hotspots of biological invasion. Many urban environmental areas around the world share a set of common species, invasive species. If you go next into my next slide, please, Celia. You can see an example here of the city of Badajoz. It's a city near Portugal, 150,000 inhabitants. And in last year, they called to the states, especially the emergency military units had to intervene to remove almost 170,000 tons of this particular invasive species in the Iberian Peninsula, the Mexican water lily. Well, this is an example of the importance of and the impact of this native species in the urban environment. And it's likely that this invasive species, this plant was deposited in the river by a private individual. And we think that prevention in this case is the best way to avoid similar situations and prevent the introduction of invasive species through sometimes ignorance or by accident. So if we go to the next, please. So our projects, the Life in Basagua project, is about that. It's about, the main objective is to reduce the introduction and the spread of aquatic invasive species in the Iberian Peninsula. And how we want to achieve these objectives? By, in our case, is about increasing public awareness and stakeholder awareness and developing specific key tools to improve early warning and rapid responses framework within for the invasive species in this case. So both activities are related to criteria, preventions and early detection, which are very important actions against in the fight invasive species at the European level. If you want to the next one, well, I can say that in this project is started in 2018 and will finish in 2023, and is coordinated by the University of Murcia in collaboration with 8 partners in Spain and in Portugal. And this is a very interesting project because we have a common space, and 2 countries are collaborating in addressing this issue, specifically the invasive species in aquatic ecosystems. And who are we addressing through these projects? Well, we are addressing decision makers, NGOs, and consultancy scientists, those people who are who have some roles in the implementation of the European regulation on invasive species, because also they had to create some kind of synergies between knowledge building and management stakeholders. But also we address surveillance agents of the rivers, estuary users, other people who are knowledge multipliers working on education or in the touristic sector, the fishery sector, the recreational fishery sector, for instance. So also they are also our target groups because they have a particular role in this early detection and rapid responses in the prevention of this, the invasion of these species. And of course, we also address the general public because we think the general public had to be aware about the threats caused by these aquatic invasive species, especially the economical damage they have this urban environment, and also not also the economical damage, but also we could have some health damage as well for the general public. We'll go to the next one, please. So on how we are going to address these people. So in our case, we plan different kind of campaigns of communication, information and trainings. We already started with events with estuary users, with field activities. We have specific educational activities for students, different ages. We organize also activities with those students from masters and degrees. And of course, we organize youth events with content, celebration of global initiatives and things like that. We include in this kind of campaign trainings at 2 levels, at MOOC level and be learning courses as well, Of course, nowadays the online seminar will be one of the important issues to be used in the coming days within the COVID period. But also we try to influence as well to organize training sessions in specific congress. We also have the support of media. We are looking for the support of media. In our case, in our project, we have the collaboration of EFE, which is the news national agency, and this agency is contributing to disseminate many news about the problem of this species and also some potential solution intervention from different kind of authorities. And of course, we also get support from museums and aquariums because in our case, we also plan to develop itinerary exhibition. This institution, they gather many people and they have an important educational role and disseminate the message that we want to transmit in this project. Next, please. So within the Life in Basagua project, we have specific objectives on citizen science in the City Science program. This citizen science program is coordinated by our center, by IUC and MET, and we want specifically promote the registration of occurrence of the invasive exotic species. We also want with this program to provide information of a specific, we selected a specific invasive species because we decided to make a selection of those species who can be easily observed or can be easily distinguished from other native species, or those species that we consider they have a more strong damage on the economy. So we are, very we selected targeted species based on our purpose. But also we want to promote awareness about the problems caused by these species in Europe, and we involve actively the general public. And involving this public, we are trying to motivate it to mapping, to monitor, to surveillance, the different kind of stakeholders, also to early warning and to provide some kind of educational awareness activities. All of this because we think that prevention and early management of these invasives can be an important aspect that citizen science could contribute. Next, please. So one of the tools that we are going to develop, it was planned ahead in the project, was to develop a smartphone app, which is now a very common tool for many projects of this kind. But in this case, we realized that it was worth it to join forces with the Joint Research Center, and especially with the ICIN app, which is already an important European app developed by our colleagues from the European Commission. And we decided to create synergies with them and trying to provide them what we consider the Iberian module of the ICIN app. So we identify 40 species that are specifically invasive species for the Iberian Peninsula. And in this way, we don't duplicate efforts on creating new tools, so that it's better to use those that are already implemented, that they have a very strong dissemination. And with this kind of collaboration, we specifically target species that occur in the Iberian Peninsula, and in this way, any kind of user downloading this app in their mobile base in the Iberian Peninsula, they will have the European species plus those specifically for the Iberian Peninsula, and that's help to the purpose of our projects because what we want is to encourage precisely the contributions and the registration of invasive species in the Iberian Peninsula, and also to raise awareness of the specific species that they have a specific problem in the Iberian Peninsula. We also have another contribution with the Joint Research Center, is the translation of 38 fact sheets of the species into Portuguese as well, because so far, it's a way that several projects are improving a common tool at European level, and this is a very interesting exercise. Next, please. So with this, along with this, the use of this tool that is going to be finished by the end of this month, the end of this year, we will have a more complete EASIN app with the Iberian Peninsula module. And this is going to be combined with Evermist platform. It's a website platform that have two purposes. One is the repository of interesting raising awareness material, but the other purpose is the visualization of data. If you go to the next one, please. So we want to show with this web platform also the records coming from the contribution from citizen science. So we are trying to use this kind of heat maps to visualize the data. And if you go to the next one, please, Celia, you will see that the purpose of this visualization is to combine scientific records with other kind of data coming from citizen science. In this case, you can see that there is a combination of this kind of information that can be useful also for authorities in charge of the control of this kind of species. And it's also a motivation. They can see, the citizens will see how this information is contributing to the scientific knowledge of the specific areas of the Iberian Peninsula. So in this kind of visualization of data, we are looking at the motivation of the citizen, because they will see their name, they will see the records, they will see additional information that they can show up through the recording, the registration record, etc. So we think when it is in place, that I hope it will be in place by the beginning of the next year, we will start using this the EASIN app in order to fit this database and to visualize this viewer of invasive species in the Iberian Peninsula. You go to the next one, please. You can see also that the platform will have general information of all these specific species occurring in the Iberian Peninsula that we highlighted as key species for raising awareness in our case, and with very general information, and we are very easily to understand and to have a comprehensive view of the problems and the habitats and in which species they normally occur. You go to the next one, please. So at the end, how we are going to fit this general database, and how are we going to motivate citizen science to use the EASIN app? Well, in our project, we plan several activities. We would like to prepare some e-learning teacher training. We are going to organize field trips with the schools. We are going to use the international days, in this case, the World Rivers and the World Fish Migration Day, to mobilize peoples. Of course, the combination with micro contests of videos and things like that, organize national days of science. And of course, we are trying to mobilize our network of volunteer ONGOs that are working on these specific issues in Spain and in Portugal. And we think one of the tools that can work very well for specific activities for recording information on the ground could be the BioBlitz. So these activities are going to implement in the coming months. And so far we cannot share with you important data coming from this project, but we hope the life of Invasacua could provide an interesting lesson learned when we finish, also an important tools such as the EASIN app being used by a high number of users in a more efficient way, and also to show that these synergies between programs is quite important exercise to maximize our resources and to get better impacts on the results. So these are the end of my presentation. Thank you very much.
much, Lourdes. I think that many of our have already received some answers to their question. And just a message to Aranza Centa, forgive me for your for the pronunciation. You are tuned to the right session, because since you are interested in initiative for citizens, or could have heard from Tim and Lourdes as well, citizen engagement is at the forefront of our discussion. So welcome to this session. Then we are already recording question, which will be tackled later on. Continue to give your input and contribution, which will make the discussion even more lively. This leads me to introduce next speaker, who is Branka Čak. I did some exercise to pronounce her surname properly. She's a biologist and specialized in botany. She's another very well-experienced expert in the field of nature conservation. And she has also dealt with in her profession with invasive species. Now she's been employed at the city of Ljubljana, where she joined the UIA Applause project, which addresses unsolved issues with invasive alien plant species, and this is what her talk will be about in terms of zero waste approach and circular economy. And again, like the other people who presented their speech before, she's very much involved in awareness raising with different age groups. Thank you very much, Branka. Please go ahead.
Thank you. Just next slide, please. Ljubljana, like many other cities, is struggling with the problem of invasive plant species. As we already heard, beside the impact on biodiversity, it has also a huge impact on human health, sometimes on human health, but especially on economy. In Project Applause, we adopted a participatory model. This is the method of achieving the full participation of citizens in decision-making and activities. Why is the participation of citizens so important? In Slovenia, as well in Ljubljana, most land is privately owned. And for effective approach towards invasive plant management, the cooperation of citizens is absolutely necessary. In a systematic approach to alien plant species started in 2010 with campaigns about removal of common ragweed. Then in the years 2014 and 15, we made a plant list in the inner part of the city of Ljubljana, and we started with a socially responsible campaign, Gloves Up. With this campaign, we encouraged citizens to put on gloves and remove invasive plants in their surroundings and on their land. At that time, we also set up a collection point for some plants, and biomass of these invasive plants started to accumulate. The collected plants are incinerated or composted. In the years 2016 and 17, we had two pilot projects of processing Japanese knotweed into paper on a semi-industrial level, and we made also handmade paper. With these projects, we demonstrated that alien plants may be utilized for useful purposes. That is very important for our next step, in 2017, we advanced our current activities by submitting an application to the Urban Innovative Action Call for Proposals. What is this Urban Innovative Actions? This is the initiative led by EU Commission. It encourages innovative projects for the development of urban areas with over 50,000 inhabitants, and the supported project must be daring yet untested, of high quality, transferable, and so on. Please, next slide. The Applause project focuses on 25 on 25 alien plants, 17 woody plants, and 8 herbaceous plants. As Eugenia already said, the project addresses the unsolved questions regarding invasive alien plant species in terms of zero waste approach and circular economy. That means that we use plants and also the waste material from pre-processing, especially of wood material. And this goes through active involvement of citizens. Our partnership is very diverse, from the specialists from the fields of data sciences, natural sciences, engineering and manufacturing, arts and design, and so on. At the beginning, we as City Ljubljana, the leader of the project, we had to set up a streamlined coordination structure that is clear and practical for all partners. Next, please. I mentioned this circular approach, and the main change now is to shift from linear treatment to circular one that leads to development of new valuable products and an effective and transferable response to invasive plant management in urban environment. As you can see, in the circular approach, citizens are engaged in all parts of this approach. Next, please. Yes, these are some of our 25 plant species. Probably you know at least some of them. I will not name them now. Just go on, please. Stakeholders. We work mainly on education, using different communication channels, like workshops, social networks, movies, articles, lectures, etc. We organized more than 100 in these 3 years. This year is the last year of our project. We organized more than 100 workshops for children, and this group proved to be the most appropriate age group in terms of activity organizations, performance, and acceptance of knowledge. Within awareness-raising campaigns, we encourage citizens to participate in invasion plant harvesting. In the implementation of this activity, we faced some challenges, like how to motivate participants to devote their free time to harvesting activities, then how to provide large enough group for one activity, and also the weather was the problem, especially last year where all the spring was rainy. We also organize workshops for seniors. Next, please. Thematic workshops, very popular, are culinary workshops, professional workshops for designers, as you can see on this picture on the right, here is the poster with the technique of letterpress printing with wooden letters. Next, please. Back. Okay. We every year we organize festivals of reuse. One is tomorrow, the last one in this project, with very diverse visitors. We also prepared a portable exhibition, and we present our products in many other events. Next, please. It is very important to locate and track the presence of invasive plants in the city, so that when it's time to harvest, we know where to go to find them. In our project, we developed a public information platform and control system for identifying alien plant species. The distribution of plants in our project is monitored mainly through field inventories by using an information system on tablet computer. This application on tablets also allows you to plan measures such as harvesting or processing into products. This digital platform aims to facilitate the entire circular workflow. We also use the method of remote sensing, which is just useful just for Japanese knotweed so far. And in plant identification, we can also use applications based on the deep learning approach. This is today most well-known and widely used in artificial intelligence approach. Next, please. Besides many useful products, the results of our project is also rich lesson learned database. We published a publication with acquired knowledge and experience. It was published today. For measuring results of the project success, we set 6 main indicators. We measure public awareness, removal of invasive plants, cultural heritage, paper and wood products, use of waste materials, usage of enzymes for paper and usage of enzymes for paper pulp. Our business model in project is important for future post-project scenario. Here at the end, you can see some of our products. You can make them by DIY culture, this DIY approach. Next, please. So our business model is based on 3 pillars. A do-it-yourself culture, where the citizens can collect materials and do something by themselves. They can bring the plant material to us and we can do it together, or they just can hand over the materials and we can use the material for different products. The essence of the approach circular business model is to redefine waste material. That means that we want to keep the raw materials in use for a longer period of time, maintain and create added value of the removed biomass. In this business model is crucial to plan how to market the products and services to citizens. But at the same time, bearing in mind that the true value is not the product itself, but the green story behind these products. like protecting local biodiversity, turning something harmful to something useful, and preserving heritage, handcrafted techniques, and so on. Next one. This is one group of high school students with their teacher. They proved to be one of the very proper group for harvesting campaign. And this is the face also of our project. And if you want to know more about our project and our products, I invite you to visit our website. You just put the word applause and Ljubljana in Google and you can find our website. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Branka. So we moved from fresh waters to urban environment. So with different perspective, different problems, and different methodologies to address citizen needs and to involve them in very practical and concrete activity to manage and remove and process invasive alien species plants. So this is very, very interesting. So I would like you to encourage you to visit the project website and to know more. At this point in time, we have to tackle one of the most controversial problems which surrounds the management of invasive alien species, which is data. So which data of which quality, and who can better present this issue than Ana Cristina Cardoso, who is the responsible for the European Alien Species Information Network. And actually, she launched the conceptual design of this scientific network and is responsible for its coordination. Ana Cristina Cardoso is a marine biologist as a background and as a PhD in marine biology, and she joined JRC in 1995. And she has conducted extensive researches in the freshwater and marine environment, and has participated to several EU-funded international researches in this field. So Ana Cristina, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Eugenio, for the introduction. So indeed, I have the pleasure to make this presentation on the European Alien Species Information Network. You can see that I'm the first author of this presentation. There are two other colleagues, including our moderators, Eugenio Gervasini and Celia Lopez Canizars, which are members, very active members of the project. But also we count with the collaboration of others, which are not mentioned in this presentation because lack of space on the slide. And not only those that are directly affiliated to the ESI network, but also other colleagues at the GRC with whom we collaborate, and many of people outside the project. Celia, please, could you change the slide? You've heard, I think, in previous presentations about problems caused by invasive alien species, and at European level, this has been recognized also through the inclusion of dedicated policies to address issues raised by these species. In fact, once introduced in a new environment, alien species, or if you prefer, non-indigenous species or non-native species, may found a situation where they lack predators or are free from other limiting factors that are in place in their original lands, including competition for food scarcity, or competition with local species. And so they are free to spread and increase their populations in a situation that is often out of control and causing important impacts on biodiversity, the economy, and also human health. Celia, please, could you change? So if you can click on the once more so we can see the, yeah, thank you. You also seen many pictures already and some are repeated here. But the point here is that these species are not coming from other planets, or and in many cases they are close to many of us, and some of them, as this crayfish, the Louisiana crayfish, Procambarus clarki, is present in 12 countries in the European Union, and in a urban context, so can encounter many European citizens. Can you change to the next slide, Celia? Another example, the Myocastor coipus, the coipu, again, a species that is quite widely spread in Europe and presenting an important impact, indeed included in the so-called invasive alien species of European concern list, a list which enacts concerted action on the species at European scale. Next, please. Another species, and this one you've seen already in Tim's presentation, if my memory doesn't fail, the European goose. And here you see a picture from the city of Brussels, where this specimen can enjoy from the city parks. Again, a species that is most widespread in Europe. It's actually found in 18 European countries. And so many of you possibly have also encountered the species, as well as many other European citizens. Next, please. Yeah, I like this picture very much. First encountered it through Eugenio, and indeed it reflects very well the situation. To manage invasive alien species, we actually need data of good quality and updated, not to end up in a situation where we are eaten by crocodiles. Next, please. So indeed, this is basically some of the issues behind the idea for ESIN. To address this problem, which is quite widespread in Europe and European environments, and requiring good data, which means complete, valid, accurate, consistent, in time. We need to have access to data, and to have quick access to this data. So what we did is to index all necessary information, attributes from existing distributed data sources in Europe and internationally, related to species that have been found to occur in Europe, and facilitate access to this data. So to facilitate users of ESIN to access the original to data that we aggregate. So this minimum number, the of necessary attributes to inform European stakeholders of the situation in Europe, but also to facilitate them to find more detailed, updated scientific information from these distributed data sources. And this is done through web tools and services, which can be found on the ESIN website. Here on the left side of the screen, you can see a snapshot of the ESIN website, sorry. And this data serves for the purpose of supporting policymakers to address policy-related requirements, researchers, and stakeholders. In time also, ESIN became the official information system supporting the implementation of the European regulation on invasive alien species. And for that purpose, we also have developed a dedicated tool supporting notifications on early warning and rapid eradication of species that fall within the list of species of European concern. Next, please. We soon also have learned that tackling alien species, and in particular invasive alien species, without engaging citizens and stakeholders is an impossible task. And started some years ago developing some activities towards the engagement of citizens in the context of the European Alien Species Information Network. This entails a number of activities, some of them through our website. You can see in the ESIN website dedicated citizen science web pages, and also Tim Woods have already mentioned the ESIN Citizen Science Projects repository, where interested citizens or others can find relevant projects in this context. Dedicated citizen science news, social media, so information which is made available through the ESIN Facebook and Twitter accounts, and also already mentioned the GRC invasive alien species application. Next, please. So this invasive alien species in Europe application idea was developed in collaboration with the digital scientists, if I can call our GRC colleagues as such, to address the need for enhancing the quality of the information on invasive alien species of Union concern occurrence in Europe in a timely manner as well. So indeed, the purpose is to collect data on invasive alien species of Union concern. At the same time, of course, as that the instrument can be used to raise awareness of the issue amongst European citizens, and make EU concerted action visible across Europe. So in that context, we collaborate with the colleagues in DG Environment, member state authorities, research centers, and citizen science organizations. You've seen the app being mentioned by the project Invasive, with whom we have been collaborating recently. The target audience is citizens, scientists, and professionals. And just to indicate how much this app is currently used, you can find that there's currently more than 3,000 downloads from relevant app stores. The next, please. So, as I already mentioned, the GRC Invasive Alien Species app initially focused on species of invasive alien species of union concern. A list that is developed in the context of the European regulation on invasive alien species, the regulation 1143 of 2014, which currently includes 66 invasive alien species, mainly terrestrial and freshwater species, with currently one only marine species included. And the app can be downloaded from Google Play and Apple Store app stores. Please, next. This was the initial context, and initially the app was made available in English. But in the meantime, we have collaborated with several institutions to enlarge its applicability in Europe and enhance engagement of citizens in using the app for the purpose of monitoring invasive alien species. And as such, we've worked together with some colleagues, but also with volunteers, citizens volunteers to translate the app in additional language. And currently it is available also in German, Italian, Spanish, Romanian, Greek, and soon to be released also version that include also translation in French, Serbian, Portuguese, Turkish, and Hungarian, if I'm correct. And also we've been working to add additional catalogs to the app. So other than the catalog of invasive alien species of union concern, working with other projects, we've added additional local relevant catalogs, such as the one that was added last year in support of the Joint Danube Survey, and it entails additional 64 species, invasive alien species, which are relevant in the context of that river basin.
Sorry, Christina, you should come to the conclusion, because otherwise we will be cut by the organizers, and
That's
we will
not
leave
fair.
some space for, yeah, so no, yeah, okay. So please, I would urge you to accelerate a bit. Yeah,
okay, thanks, Eugenio.
Apologies.
So you heard about collaboration with Invasive, but currently ongoing, there's additional collaborations with Maltese authorities responsible for the implementation of invasive alien species regulation, and an Interreg project in the Sava River Basin. Next, please. So that's very quick. The app allows for invasive species searching, filtering, and visualization. You can see relevant screenshots in upper part of the screen. Allows for users to view all sightings submitted, screenshot on the lower part of the screen, and also report a new sighting, upper left of the screen. Next, please, Celia. And also allows for the visualization of all sightings reported via the application. Next, please. Here you see the data validation platform. So the sightings submitted via the application flow into a database managed by the GRC, which we call the data validation platform. Here you can see a screenshot that allows the ESIN team to manage the reported sightings, mainly to proceed to data validation or to ask for additional questions to the individual that reported a certain sighting, to clarify some aspects of the report, or to discharge the report if the photo is not valid. Please, next. The next step is the flow of the data between this citizen science platform, validation platform, to the European Alien Species Information Network. And the validated records on that the previous platform can then be integrated in the ESIN and made available through ESIN to all interested users as one of the data sources, complementing the picture, the distribution of the species relevant to the application catalogs. Next, please. Here you see a snapshot of the ESIN mapping tool, where you see the ESIN data partners, so those data sources that contribute with spatial information to build ESIN maps. And one of the data sources, the EASE, is the data, includes the data flowing from validated sites, flowing from the citizen science platform, based on the invasive alien species app submitted records. Next, please. So to conclude, future directions. So a lot to be done, other than some work upon which I did not had time to dedicate, which is the engagement work and the training and education. But we are also working on a possibility to include artificial intelligence for the image recognition. Currently, the image validation is done mainly by the ESIN team with support from the ESIN editorial board members. The translation in missing European languages. Also the integration with other citizen science projects. We are planning to have a web application mirroring the app. Network enlargement, of course, entailing collaborations with other projects and authorities and institutions, stakeholders, all interested. So you also invited to join if of interest. And the work on education, including MOOC, which also was also already mentioned. And still a dream, the inclusion of virtual reality and virtual reality as a tool to engage, but also to educate and raise awareness, and gamification to enhance engagement of citizens in the use of the application. Next, please. And so I just have to thank you to listen to this presentation. And
thank you very much,
if
Anna
your
Cristina,
questions are
for your contribution. Unfortunately, we ran out a little bit of time, and hope that people got some answers to their curiosities and questions. So I tried to address some also online via the chat, and we will be our session will expire very soon. But I invite the attendees to put forward further question if they have, or to contact us directly in our with emails in our organization later on. So the idea of this session was to liaise across different field works, and this has worked quite well, I would say, even though we had very little space for further discussion. But if I can launch an open question to the speakers, which I thank warmly, is what do you think are the main needs for managing invasive species in Europe from your experience? Very quickly, we can give the floor in a circle, starting from Team Woods, if possible, if they can contribute to this. Thank you.
I'm not 100% sure. I've not worked massively on invasive species as a subsector of citizen science. I do wonder with this subject, like an awful lot of environmental subjects, whether one of the kind of important steps is to raise awareness, because the people that I know from the world of conservation all know about invasive species, but when I think about kind of my friends and family who aren't necessarily from that background, I wonder how much of an issue it is on people's radars. You know, it takes an awful lot of media coverage or something similar for people to really engage in a subject, as we've seen with something like climate change. So perhaps one of the next steps to developing more citizen science projects around invasive species is to raise awareness of the problem. When people know there's a problem to be tackled, then they like to get involved. And if that can be done specifically, or not specifically, but particularly at local levels, people are aware of the invasive species near them, it gives them a stake in getting involved with the project. It's kind of a conservation strategy as well. You know, invasive species are linked to very closely to conservation, I guess. But to me, that's one of the first steps in any kind of initiative, in any citizen science project. Make people aware of how they can help out. What's the point of them giving up their time and getting involved is always an important first step, I think.
Thanks, Tim. That's very important. Just to add what Sabine Stolb wrote before introducing herself, she said, cooperation, peer learning across Europe. This is something that has to be borne in mind. So we are an international organization, and we need the scientific information and knowledge flow without borders. This is particularly important. If someone else of the speakers want to contribute to this, this is very welcome.
Maybe I can, Eugenio,
yeah.
You allow me?
Very quickly, yes.
Yeah, always very quickly. I think Tim raised a very good point. I think data availability in all its components is still an issue. But I think many things are interrelated. One day we had a dream, which was of an European BioBlitz. Maybe it is something actually that would bring many things together, such as raising awareness, collaboration, and data collection. We have the tools. Maybe we should launch such an initiative.
Yeah, that could be is definitely a good idea, also to engage and with people. Before being cut from the organizer, I would like to thank you again for the nice speeches, and to thank the attendees who steadily followed us, and I hope they had enjoyed our session, and we are available for further questions they might have in future. So visit our websites. You will find interesting links, because this is what we are trying to do in our daily job, to network across all the people working on the field of invasive alien species, citizen science, and ultimately we want to have people the possibility to express and to take care of what really has an effect on their daily life, which is the environment around us, which is threatened, as rightly mentioned by Tim, but also by the current trend in climate change. Thank you very much to everybody. I hope to see you in next event, and stay safe, keep social distancing in current COVID times. So, and wish you a nice evening. Thank you very much.